All your Survivor teams are dead at this point, Chris Liss. So I figured that the best topic to talk about today would be just your fantasy teams, a couple of my teams, and then maybe give people some tips heading into the playoffs that you might think are obvious, but I think that they're worth talking about because, as obviously there's fantasy football is one on the margins a little bit. There's some luck, and then there's things you could do, and we'll go into all those things. But first, Survivor. What happened to you in Week 12?
Well, I didn't have a lot of great choices. I went with the Patriots against the Giants. I love the spot. The Giants coming off the big win. Not big win, but like an upset win against the football team the week before. And the Pats being, just an embarrassment. I just thought, and they were laying wood on the road, which seemed a little weird. And I was like, oh, this is because this is perfect. This is the Giants. The Giants won despite taking 9 sacks. They got like 6 turnovers in that football team game. And it was like a great sell high. And so the Patriots show up and they turn it over 3 times. And Mac Jones is just abominable. I mean, there's no words that I have for Mac Jones. And then Brady Zappi was almost as abominable. Bailey Zappi was almost as abominable as Mac Jones. And, again, even with all of that, they still had the ball for a chip shot to tie, and they shanked away my season. But I'm glad if it's going to happen. Is the Giants. I don't feel like bad. I only had like $200 in equity in that pool anyway. And, I feel like it was, it's weird because in one sense, you just want to get it right. You don't really care. If Justin Tucker hits it off the crossbar, in that legendary game, in the Team of Destiny, that's just as good as a blowout, right? Like a win is a win, and you're just trying to get a winner. On the other, when you talk about predicting, are you predicting what's going to happen, whether you're going to survive? Are you predicting sort of the flow of the game, the quality of the teams? By the latter criteria, I feel like I did okay. Like the Pats were the better team. They just kept turning it over, and they even still should have tied it and gone to overtime. But in the end, you lose. And so it was a bad prediction. So I always wrestle with that, whether I'm supposed to predict the future like a psychic, which I do believe in, like that kind of thing. Like you just got to win. You just got to get the W, or you're trying to predict like game flow and team quality. And then there's some lucky bounces that you can't control. I don't really, I'm like I believe in agency. Like I made the pick. I should control the luck, and if I screw up the luck, I've made a bad pick. I can't say, oh, my process was good. So, it was a loss. I'm not that broken up about it. I'm actually, I thought I was going to win kind of. I just thought I was going to keep picking winners all year. I just kind of had that belief every year, but I'm not that bummed that I lost.
Yeah, the reason I had to correct you when you said Brady Zappi, you can't talk about Brady and the New England Patriots and then mix them up with Bailey Zappi. I mean, come on.
Brady, Bailey Zappi,
Well, Brady is a sacred cow in New England.
Well, I love Brady's comments. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago, like that he's saying the NFL is getting soft. I like that. I like that he's already talking shit the first year he's out of the NFL.
He didn't mind it when he was being protected his last year when the offensive line fell apart on him. So he didn't mind the
the whole rule was because Brady tore his ACL the year after they went 17-1, lost in the Super Bowl. First play of the season, he tears his ACL. The whole you can't go low on quarterbacks. That's because of Brady. Now, I'm not saying he is, he made the rule. He didn't, but he was the reason.
Right.
Yeah, he inspired the rule. Yeah.
Yeah, just like the Bills and Chiefs game in overtime inspired the new rules. Like, oh, okay, we can't have one team coming down after like the best game in NFL history scoring, and then it's over without Josh Allen even getting a try. So same situation there. Fantasy playoffs. Are you going to make it in any of your leagues? What's the state of your fantasy teams?
Bad. I don't think I'm going to make it in any leagues. The prime time had a chance, and I made some minor errors last week. I switched the Lions in on Thanksgiving, and I got 0. But
defense,
I had but I had the Saints that got 5, so I was actually rooting against them, so I didn't have to kill myself. This because if they got 20, I would kill myself. But the thing is, so I'm like, okay, well, I'm still kind of peripherally in it. I just need like a 200-point week, and like really, then we'll be cooking. And then I looked, and I've got Saquon, Keaton Mitchell, and Kenny Walker as my 3 running backs. None of them are playing this week. And then I think I have a 4th back too that's not playing this week. And so I had to pick up Royce Freeman is one of my backs, and Jeff Wilson.
Yeah,
and Jeff Wilson. I mean, I just that's it. And so I'm not going to get a 200-point. You're probably not going to get a 200-point week no matter what, even if I have Walker and Barkley, and Keaton Mitchell or whoever. But now I'm like going to be lucky to get 140 and you just have to, where I'm at, you needed 2 big weeks, and I'm pretty much drawing dead, and my other teams are even worse. So
this is why, by the way, that you
yeah.
can't just do NFFC teams because it's the 2. Next year, I'm going to screaming. I'm going to drag you in. You're going to come into my home league. It's a normal league. There's normal people. It's
No
6
way.
teams play. Yes, 1 league you'll do. 1 league.
I don't care. I don't care about making the playoffs to win like $800. I don't care about the fantasy playoffs. Like I mean, if I'm in it, I want to win. Last year, I should have listened to you and started Daniel Jones over Trevor Lawrence. I would have $7,000, but only because of that whole Damar Hamlin heart attack thing. I didn't deserve it, but it is what it is. But point is that it doesn't matter to me. It was a bad year. It was a weird year. I mean, I look at who like the top running backs are. It's like a bunch of no names and like it's all clustered. It was just a weird year. I had a lot of investments that I need. When I wrote up my portfolio, I had like Chris Godwin, Darren Waller, Bijan Robinson, DK Metcalf. It's like if 3 of these 4 pan out, I'm gonna have a good year. Well, basically 0 panned out the way I hoped. So it was a bad year.
Yeah. So I'll try again, but I can't convince you to come into one.
No, I just have no interest. It's just work. It's just stuff to do.
Yeah.
I'm in the stake league, which
But that's low. No, it's actually not low stakes.
Well,
no
it is when you go to the dinner,
Right,
thanks to me, because I'm the one who orders all the stuff. And there I'm like, I think I'm a self-buyer right now. I'm like in the middle. But Erickson and Len Hochberg are really, they're just like so far back. So there's no worry about that. But I don't want to be Thornberry's so far back. I don't want to be a single buyer. Self buyer is okay, So
yeah. All right. Well, I'll broach the subject again, and maybe we're actually thinking about with our league is even though we're drafting, we're turning it into a best ball. Maybe that's more appealing to you. Where you don't have to set your lineup every week. There's still waivers, but that's.
How about this? What if you make it like a best ball? Auto draft best ball. You don't even show up. You get randomly drafted. The thing drafts it. You play out the season. You put your money down. In the end, you either collect or not. And it's just auto from beginning. Nobody does anything.
Right.
AI.
Yeah, and set up an auto payment to pay me on the first of the year, so every year, so you never have to worry about.
I never look at it. Auto from my bank into your bank, back into my bank. It's just happening without our knowing. This is what's going to be the future. We're going to all have our own AI brand. We're going to tweak it a bit, and then we're going to. Is that your alias, by the way?
Andrea
I know.
Anytime Andrea comes up in there, I have to put her name out there because this is unbelievable to me. Like Andrea, I've never met anyone that had a name like this before. So other than myself, so this is what I love her, and I don't even know who she is.
Right. So your alter ego there, but
my female self.
Exactly. But my point is, we're going to select your AI like the NFFC in 2034. It'll be like AI 1, AI 2, AI 3. I'll go with 3. It's more. You just adjust like the risk, the amount of risk you want to take, and it goes in and does an aggressive league, does all your moves, does everything. You don't even watch football anymore. You just collect.
I saw a tweet that you made about AI this week that I thought was great. And by the way, I've said this every week. I hate that you're on Twitter on Tuesday. It's the one day I'm literally not on because it's been the weekend, and then I have like my workload is very front loaded on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, and then it's a little softer Thursday, and then it's heavy again Friday. So. But you were talking about how AI, the scare, how everyone's trying to scare you that AI is going to destroy the banking system. I tried to explain. Do you know what tweet I'm talking about? And then you said,
I think basically what it is when I see like Reuters is like, basically the regime, whatever you want, the cathedral, whatever you want to call it, the establishment. When they tweet something like the reason that whole drama at OpenAI happened is because apparently there was a very dangerous humanity-threatening breakthrough that happened, and that's why the board panicked and got rid of Sam Altman. When Reuters reports something like that, I don't think, oh my God, AI is going to kill us. I think, why do they want me to think AI is going to? Why do they want me to be scared of AI, or why are they telling me that AI is going to destroy us? I never think, oh my God, AI is going to destroy us. I no longer take those, and I didn't do my other podcast, but I have some notes on this, and I'm going to talk about this. Like, they don't warn you about seed oils. They don't warn you about pesticides in your foods.
When you say they, you mean the authority, the government.
The health authorities, the FTC. Nobody really warns you about the stuff that's causing cancer. Nobody warns you. They warn you about ISIS. They warn you about COVID. They warn you about AI. They warn you about, like, if they were really in the business of warning you about stuff that was like an existential threat to you, you'd be like, hey, You got to lay off the Frito-Lay products. I don't know if they're a sponsor, but they're gone now. You got to lay off the Nabisco, if that's even. You got to lay off the Oreos. You got to lay off this stuff. It's gonna kill you, like diabetes and heart disease and cancers through the roof. You got to avoid the medical system. Third leading cause of death in the U.S. is medical error. I mean, literally after heart disease and cancer. They would warn you about things that are actually killing people in mass, right? But they don't. They warn you about things like ISIS, which has nothing to do with you. They warn you a lot about ISIS, and about COVID and about all these things that have a very low death rate for healthy people. And so when they warn you about something, my question is always, why do they want me to be scared of this? Why am I reading this now instead of taking the thing literally and saying, oh my God, I'm so scared of AI.
Yeah. I learned what ISIS actually meant the other day. It's the Iraqi. What does it stand for? It's the Iraqi.
I don't know. Who knows? ISIS.
Yeah. It's the Iraqi.
Bob Dylan sang about ISIS. You know the Bob Dylan song?
No, I don't know it.
It's about a girl named ISIS, but it's same difference.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's totally different. It's the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. That's what it stands for.
All right.
Yeah, I didn't know that because I always thought it was like a.
You were terrified of it till this moment. Now that you looked it up, you're like, oh, it's not as scary as I thought when I.
Like Iraq's our friend,
Yeah.
Despite
sure,
what. Yeah. No, I've been listening to a lot of perspectives on like Israel, the whole thing. It's like I'm learning more and more about the history of it. And, because growing up Jewish, you always hear one way. And again, I just want to hear like the unbiased history of it. So it's just interesting to learn going back to like the 1600s. That's how far I went back to learn about this. Yeah, it's crazy. So
I don't know that much, and so I don't really opine that much on most of this, on the stuff that I don't know. It's like I could get into the whole thing. I'm just not that interested in it. So I'm
I'm interested.
You're interested. I just have to like inform myself, and I'm just like,
Mm-hmm. Well, because like I said, you went to Hebrew school or no?
No, nothing.
Yeah, so I was forced to go for a couple of years, and you learn it a certain way, and a lot of that history ends up talking about it from, not from 1930s on. So I was just curious of what was before that, so I just did a little dive.
You got to go back to like the year 0, and then you get the whole thing.
Right. I didn't want to. I thought the year 1600 was good enough.
Yeah. Statute of limitations on certain things. Yeah.
All right. Let's talk a little more fantasy football. Couple tips. I really want to give some tips. All right. For people that are in traditional leagues lists where the 12 or 14 teams, 6 teams make the playoffs. Obviously every week is winner get in. Is there how should the waiver wire being handled right now? Who are the type of players we should be picking up? Who are the type of players we should clip off our roster in general? Then you can name some specifics if you want.
Well, it depends. Like the NFFC, right? Your roster locks.
No,
so you really want
like traditional home league stuff. Where
I mean, I haven't played one of those for a while, but
the deal.
But basically, the guy that like needs more targets to like who has upside, that's just cut that guy, right? Like if it's like some guy who's like Quentin Johnson or someone who's like, oh, well, if he gets some targets, one day maybe he'll show why he's the first round. Obviously, you probably cut him already.
The upside wide receiver specifically
gone. Like there's nothing there, right? Because if you're not going to have him, if he goes off in a playoff game and then you might put him in, he does nothing. You need a few weeks for a wide receiver to establish himself. There's no point in having a non-regularly targeted wide receiver on your roster anymore.
I would even add to that, like T. Higgins, the guy who was never really, you're waiting. He's injured, and now he's playing with like a Jake Browning type.
Right, and he's
like
Chase is still there too. It's
like I would pick up a backup running back. Like I'd pick up Dearness Johnson and cut T. Higgins on my season-long roster. Like that's how far I would take it.
I picked up Dearness Johnson everywhere actually,
because
ETN one. I mean, that's the thing. You want like the backup running back, the Dowdles, the Dearness Johnsons. One injury, and this guy could be the guy that wins everybody's league for them, right? And that's still a guy that still you don't have 8 weeks for that to happen. Now you've got a couple of weeks, but it will happen. Someone's going to get hurt in the next couple of weeks, and you don't know who it is. So you may as well just have a little bit of upside stash. And then, right before the playoffs actually start, you might even want to keep one of those guys, but like cut one of them for, look at matchups. Like, okay, next week, let's say, if you have Josh Allen, you're probably just going to play him every week. But if you have, I don't know, Prescott or Purdy or Tua, you might want to just look at the next couple of weeks and say, who's got a really great matchup, who's pretty good, and then just pick up that quarterback. And so, in week 16, that's my guy.
Right. So you're just, again, I don't know this matchup specifically, but if Tua, Russell Wilson, someone like that's in a better spot than, sorry, if like Russell Wilson's in a better spot than say Tua, like, and it's definitive, you would maybe hold on to the better matchup play and just not, like, you know what I'm saying? Something like that.
Yeah,
Like if
yeah,
Tua is facing
or yeah, of course, and or maybe a defense, right? Like there's some defense, somebody's getting the Jets, or just you know, I mean, you don't want to go too far at the defense because crazy stuff happens defensively, but you don't want to use too many roster spots on that. But you're basically just thinking, okay, I've got 3 weeks to get this. I want, a backup running back or two now, right? And then depending on how aggressive your league is, you know what? I put in for Patrick Taylor. That's a good point.
yeah, well, what you're talking about for the audio audience, that one, Uncle Ted, who, by the way, is awesome. He's in. I always see him in every stream of every podcast. He's across every company. He's a maniac in a good way. But he said Patrick Taylor is a running back no one's talking about. He's the running back, of course, on the Green Bay Packers, and Aaron Jones still dinged up. So why do you think Patrick Taylor is a good pickup list?
Well, that's it. You just said AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones are banged up. Dillon's not that good. Who knows, right? I mean, basically, there's 2 running backs on every team if they move the ball a little bit, right? And so. Well, I don't know what that.
He was talking about the ISIS stuff.
ISIS. So I was like, oh, really? Patrick Taylor was always got. I'm definitely picking out now. That's a hard dude. Mujahideen, man. That's that's serious.
I showed you the comments out of context.
Okay.
I was just showing him Patrick Taylor, and then when I showed you, someone commented on the Mujahideen and Osama bin Laden. So I got to get this under control. Here we go.
So. Anyway, if like Iraq ever gets an NFL team or something, or Afghanistan gets an NFL team, they call it the Mujahideen, and then some woke people like protest that, and it'll be called like the Afghan. They can't even call it like the warlords anymore or something. You'll have to call it like the Afghan. I don't know what
call it the.
They'll ruin it. They'll ruin it like they ruin everything.
Yeah, I'm trying to. What would be a woke
Mujahideen would be a great name for a football team.
Sick. But what would be a woke word if we had a team in the Middle East? Like what would
in Afghanistan?
All right.
I don't know.
Could it be the what was
the Petrols or something?
Okay, well, but right. It said the Oilers, the Petrols.
Yeah, the Oilers. Yeah, just like Houston.
The poppy seeds, the Afghanistan.
Well, the poppy. You can't do that. It's drugs. Okay. It's like the Washington Bullets, right?
Right.
Like, yeah. I mean, I thought the Redskins should have changed it to Bullets. That was always my first choice. Just get back the old school. The old school basketball team that got outlawed. But anyway, the point is that I don't even know what the point is. These running backs, right? You want guys like that. There's 2 running backs per team in a game where there's the ball movement, where it's not like a Giants or Jets game where there's usually 2 running backs that do something. You want one of them. If one of them gets hurt, you have the dominant guy. I mean, look, Royce Freeman, foolishly, I had him on my bench in the stake league last week for CEH because I just thought they're both backups. McKinnon was out, and oh man, one guy did nothing, one guy did a lot. But just players who are 1 injury away. That's it. And by the way, I think I'm glad that Kyron Williams, Cam Akers bet didn't come with degree of dominance. You got smashed. because I was to the year Brady Anderson hit 50 home runs.
Explain. Yeah. So Liss and I have a bet. Back in week 2, who's gonna have more fantasy points? Cam Akers, Liss had. I had Kyron Williams. Obviously, we know that is like that's a Mike Tyson against Trevor Burbick knockout.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm going to win that Ramondre Zeke Elliott.
You're up by 2. You're 2 touchdowns ahead.
That's almost like a lock. They're not going to score that many more touchdowns this year, especially with those quarterbacks. But
so you were saying about the degree of this.
Yeah. So, we just bet like, okay, $40. I doubled down because I was stubborn. Who's going to get more points, right? We didn't say like degree of dominance, right? One time in like 1993, I think it was, I was on the subway with some dudes from law school, and Brady Anderson hit like 11 home runs in April or something. And I said, oh, this guy's going to hit a lot of home runs this year. He's got it was like April 20th, he'd hit 11 home runs. So he's going to hit a lot of home runs this year. The guy's like, nah, he's going to end up with like 20 home runs. I was like, I'll tell you what, let's do an over-under. You name it, 20, 22, whatever. He's like, 20 is fine. So for every home run under 20, I pay you $1. And every home run over 20, you pay me $1. That was the year he roided up and hit 50. So that dude paid me $30. And back then that was a lot, right? It was like 1993, law school, and so that, that's the kind of bet you really get punished for being extremely wrong.
All right.
But next year you gotta put in a degree,
So this reminds me, are you familiar with what a lightning bet is? Like as far as like Las Vegas books and stuff like that?
Nope.
So we used to do these lightning bets. This guy, when I was in the University of Albany, he used to take lightning bets. And basically you could do a $5, $10, $100 lightning bet. And if you take the over, it's say you do a $10 lightning bet, you get $10 per point over the over. Might pay $10 minus a point under it.
Yeah.
So basketball is where this is fun, right?
Overtime is really bad news on the unders.
We hit the best one we've ever hit was a triple overtime Knicks Celtics game. We had a $5 lightning bet go. I mean, it's like a pinball machine. Every time it goes over, cha-ching, cha-ching.
Right.
You really get punished. You could do a $100 lightning bet and and if you get crushed on the under, sometimes.
Well, they got to make the lines high because the downside is capped, right? I mean, it's never, say the under is like, 200. Let's say it's like 200 and it goes like, 180
to 85. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And so you lose $35 or 35 times 5, which is a lot. But the over, I mean, in the triple, it can go, I mean, I guess it's capped at like 160. I mean, at like, 300-ish, it's not going to go much higher than 300.
Well, you have the option to take the under or the over.
I know, but I'm just saying like the over is theoretically with overtimes, like infinite liability, like keep going.
Well, listen, this is why it's a psychotic bet.
Right.
So I don't know if Vegas does it anymore, but supposedly this guy told me, going back 25 years that lightning bet was like a thing you can make at the counter. I mean, it's fantastic, right? I mean, you get
it's the best kind of bet because it really rewards you, for knowing what you're doing. Like if I get a win because I'm, lucky, it's the same as if, let's say I have like, I'm like, oh, this team's going to roll and they're a 14-point favorite and they win by 15 on a pick 6 while the other team's driving to tie, right? Like I wasn't really right about that. I mean, I'll cash it, but it wasn't like, cause I had some insight about those teams, but if they win like, 52-0, that means like that was really good time to lay the wood. And there's no difference between those two positions if you're in a regular bet, right? But the lightning bet, it's a huge difference. So I think that's good. I think that should be more common. I guess it's just the liabilities to maybe just make it $1 though, a point, or $5.
I mean, you could do whatever you want. Just when you're you can make it a quarter. I don't whatever the minimums are. I mean, but some psychos go there and they'll get $1,000 lightning bet. Let's go.
Yeah. Let's go. Let's do it.
And then I don't know, but maybe there was ways to cap it. You could pay for caps. You
right.
Could say, hey, I'll take a maximum of like on a $100 bet, say a maximum of $500 loss or whatever.
Or it could be built in, like you could choose like a $10 plus or minus, win or lose. So it's either way it's capped. And
right.
I guess the reason they don't do that is because
it's complicated.
You have to. Well, it's complicated. Like you got to put down more money than the bet, right? Like if you put down $100 and it doesn't cash, there's nothing to do. You just don't show up. But what do? You got to put down the maximum you could lose kind of, and then cash. So it's a little,
Right. So yeah, maybe that's why it's not there. Or if you do, like, if you're on like a website, you can do the max. Right. No, I see what you're saying. That is complicated.
You have to have the money in the account where they're going to pull from your credit card if you get a really bad, you have the over and it's, it's 2-0 in overtime, and that's it.
Yep. How about going back to tips for fantasy football? A lot of us still play in leagues with kickers. Are you looking at the schedules there indoor? Like, are you rostering a kicker? Like, say you have Brandon Aubrey, the kicker in Dallas, who's just been lights out. Is there any situation that you're not playing him through the fantasy playoffs for like?
I'd look at
like Matt Gay or something like that, who's an indoor kicker.
Yeah, I would look at it, but I don't know if I would do much. I mean, in the NFFC, I would. Sometime now this team kicker, you don't really need to carry 2 kickers, but you used to have to for that 3-week thing. Yeah. Maybe I would look at it at least, like, especially if I didn't have an elite kicker. If I had an elite kicker, I'd probably leave it alone on a good offense. But if I had sort of a crap, not a crap kicker, but a kicker on a bad team, a good kicker on a bad team, or just an average kicker on a good team, I might look at matchup.
Do you think so when we're talking about the NFFC, the high stakes stuff, they do team defense, like, which is standard across, even home leagues, team kicker now, which I love because sometimes these kickers get subbed in and out like in multiple weeks. Like,
right.
The kicker on week 5 is different than 6 and 8, Do you think they should do like the high stakes should do team quarterback too, or is that just too far?
Like
if you have Geno Smith, you have Drew Lock too.
In other words, like a guy gets hurt in the first quarter, doesn't destroy. I mean, it'll probably destroy you, but it'll hurt you. It won't destroy you necessarily.
Right. Because that happens all the time. So yeah, Dak Prescott gets hurt on the third drive. He's got 8 points. Whereas
Cooper Rush gets another 7 the rest of the game.
Yeah, 15.
Now you got 15. Okay, like you should have got 30, but it didn't just absolutely annihilate you.
Is that too much?
I'm open to it. I mean, just team running back, team wide receiver, team
Maybe,
tight end, team tight end.
right, team tight, right. No, maybe for Superflex, would be a little bit because there's no replacement value on the waiver wire.
For quarterback, you're saying?
Yeah, for quarterback.
Yeah, I'm open to it. I'm not saying I'd have to think about it more.
Okay.
I don't think it's not crazy. I've thought about it before. I mean, it's occurred to me that you could do that.
All right. Saquon Barkley, we talked about him a little bit earlier. Good 2 weeks ago. Bad this past week. On bye this week. I paid up for him in a couple of my dynasty leagues. I'm regretting that a little bit. What do you think the Giants are actually going to do with Saquon next year? And let's say we had the draft and you didn't know if he was going to be on the team. I mean, you're not taking him in the first round anymore, right?
No, probably late second. I mean, the thing is, he's still good. I mean, that game against Washington, I mean, he's catching passes, back shoulder, while being hit. I mean, he's still good. And I feel like he's not slowed down because he's just missed a lot of time with ankle injuries and stuff. He hasn't been beat up like Derrick Henry over the years or some of these guys. So I would still take him second round. I don't know what the Giants are going to do because what did they do? They did some, it wasn't exactly a franchise because he made it a deal or something.
So what they did was they originally franchise tagged him and then they removed the tag now, and then they gave him a small amount of money, but which is basically, just a little bit more market price. But here's the thing that I don't know. And if anyone in the chat knows this, let us know. Are they allowed to franchise tag him again now? Or was that an agreement that they won't tag him next year? Because
he voluntarily gave it up, basically.
Right. Because normally the second tag is you take that all day. It's plus 40% on the next salary. It's not just that that average of the top 5 guys.
So why would he open himself up to being franchised again
for an extra $1 million or whatever it was
without getting the bonus of the double franchise?
So we don't know that. But let's assume for a second that he's not franchise tagged, just in that mindset. Because if he is, then obviously this doesn't matter, this conversation.
So basically they would have to
either they sign. Do you think they're going to sign him to a 2-year deal where they give him 10 per, 11 per, or do you think he's going to test the market and take a mercenary deal somewhere?
I think the latter most likely because Daniel Jones coming back from I mean, you got they'll draft a quarterback. I don't know what their first pick, but they'll draft a quarterback or sign somebody, and then you're gonna have Daniel Jones coming off the injury, and then you can't really be I'm not saying they can't do it, but the Giants, even though they have some pieces, Andrew Thomas, Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau has been great. They can't be we're serious contenders now, so we're going to spend big bucks on the veteran running back. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. He's perfect for the Eagles if Swift, got hurt or tore his ACL next week. He's perfect for a team
anywhere. He's perfect. Yeah. If Tennessee, if they let Derrick Henry go and they just want to continue with that monster running back
toast. I mean, he's perfect for the Bills.
Yeah,
a team that's we have a quarterback already. We have we're a contender. Saquon would be huge for them, but it's the Giants, these other sort of rebuild teams. Texans would be good, actually. That would actually be a good, because with Stroud, and then you get Barkley there, and then those receivers develop, maybe they add a receiver, then you have, a top 5 offense. So I think they'll probably let him go. But
the reason I think is somebody is going to pay up because Barkley, see, this is where I think teams miss, and not all teams, but it's not just okay, what Saquon's service is worth. He's a guy who actually puts asses in the seats in a stadium. He's a guy who sells jerseys. Right. He's a personality. He's commercial. He's a good-looking guy. He's, he's a great player.
Bitcoiner. So, if Bitcoin goes up high enough, he's not going to care about the money. So I don't know how much he has. He's probably got a lot.
I don't care who you are. You always want a little. You want what you're worth. I saw some survey out there that people. I forget the exact choice. It was, would you rather make $100,000 and be the lowest paid person at your company, or be paid $75,000 and be the highest paid person at your company? And it was split 50-50. Which meaning that half the people just wanted to be acknowledged as the highest earner.
Right. Yeah.
Which is silly.
I saw one that said, would you rather have $10 million or 1 Bitcoin, but you couldn't move it? It had to stay in your account for 20 years.
I mean, you're going to laugh at me. It's a great question, but I'm but I can't even spend it for 20 years.
Neither one you can't spend for 20 years.
Because one of them is going to be worthless.
Well, no. Well, one of them is inflation's going to kill it, right? I mean, you're dealing with inflation, serious inflation. So anyway, I thought that was most people say 20 million, 10 million. That's so much, but it's not in today's dollars, right? You got to inflation adjust.
Yeah. It's hard to get your brain there if you're not deep into it.
If you're not already deep down the rabbit hole. Yeah.
Frank Reich fired this week, Chris Liss. I still think Frank Reich is a good coach. I think he got the short end of the stick. In your opinion, what do you think happened? Do you think it was the right thing to do? And what do you think is the residual effect on Carolina? Because there's a couple, Adam Thielen's going to be someone that people are thinking about playing. Jonathan Mingo is somebody that Jeff and I talked about as a possible pickup that could end up getting, with the new regime. Bryce Young, they have to develop him. So your general thoughts on Carolina and Frank Reich firing?
I mean, I don't really have a lot of thoughts on it. It's like a garbage team with bad players. Thielen is a real dink and dunk artist. I mean, he was making some bigger plays early in the season, but they got to look to the future. I think Thielen's 33 or something. I mean, I think they probably will get someone like Mingo more involved. I don't know if DJ Chark is a factor, but it's just a bleak situation. Giving up the number 1 pick plus passing up on Stroud. It's just bleak. I mean, Frank Reich is the least of the who's coaching is the least of the problems there.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well. There was some chatter that David Tepper is going to do whatever it takes to get Bill Belichick to come over there. I don't buy that for a second, as Bill Belichick's trying to rack up wins. I mean, the easy connect the dots is the Chargers because Staley's gone.
Chargers. I would rather take the Panthers job as bad as it is, because the Chargers are like, they're just such a cursed franchise. And
at least they have a franchise quarterback.
They do, but I don't know what. And it's like you're expected to win. There might be something in there that's a little soft. Like there's something about the team that's not right. And you're expected to win, right? But the Panthers is a true rebuild. You actually get to mold it any way you want. But the problem with the Panthers is you're saddled with Bryce Young. You can't just dump him, so easily. And if that's a problem, that's a problem. I guess maybe the Chargers, but the Chargers are people think that every year the Chargers are contenders, and this year, they're like the Giants. I mean, they have the same record as the Giants so far.
Yeah, but at least with the Chargers, like I said, is that. Yeah, if there is a soft element to them, who's better to change the culture than Bill Belichick?
I mean, I think Belichick. Look, he won 2 Super Bowls as defensive coordinator as the Giants. He won 6 with the Patriots. I don't think we can say that because Brady left is all Brady. I don't think we can say that, but I do think we can say something is seriously off about him. Now they say it's the GM trading a second rounder for 31-year-old Mohamed Sanu. I mean, that's just inexcusable. Those weird multi-tight end drafts. I mean, just because you got a killer tight end draft, with Gronk and Hernandez the first time, he just kept doing that. And then you signed Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry. It's just weird what he's trying to do. And so I don't know that. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know that Belichick is going to suddenly make the Chargers into a hard ass team just by showing up. I've lost faith in him, the faith that I had in him.
Yeah. I mean, he's about 30 wins or so behind Don Shula. That's 3 10-win seasons plus, right? He needs that. And if he
doesn't need that. He's got the 6 Super Bowls. I mean,
he wants
Shula, it. Oh, he does?
He wants that, man. To be the most winning coach of all time, that's one of the stats we pay attention to.
I don't know. To me, it's just playing out the string of he coaches 10 more years to get 6 wins a year or something. Or
that's why the Chargers give him the chance for the 10-win season.
They got Herbert. I mean, I guess Bosa's always hurt. I don't know that Eckler's done. It looks like it's funny. Eckler. There's this thing going around about him. He was his longest run. He was running 13 miles per hour peak speed. And I was like, there's no way that's right because, on the track, if you can run a 15-second 100-meter, which I can still do at 52, that's 15 miles an hour. So I'm pretty confident Austin Eckler could probably run 18 miles an hour, maybe more. But they were saying how his fastest run or his longest run in one game, he was clocked by the next gen stats at 13 miles an hour.
I heard him on the Yahoo podcast, Austin Eckler, and he sounded pretty defeated. And I'm pissed off because I just traded in a Superflex Dynasty League. I traded away Bryce Young for him because I can't.
That's good. That's
good. Not really, because Bryce Young probably will come around next year. I mean, he's not even startable right now. He's getting 7-8 fantasy points.
I mean, Bryce Young might be Sam Darnold, Zach Wilson. I mean, that's to me is the base case right now.
But Eckler, man, that's he's 29 next year. He's going to be. he's going to be looking for he's going to be looking for the Dalvin Cook situation next year, the backup to like the star.
He's got the pass catching. I mean, so he could be Sproles for a couple of years. Sproles played until he's like 34. Now, you weren't getting a lot of fantasy points out of him in his 30s. You did like in his late 20s. He had a couple good years for the Saints, but he at least has some specific skill that'll fit a little bit.
Yeah, I know everyone to the Chiefs is always what they say, but I could see Eckler being the 1B to Pacheco next year as McKinnon just kind of ages. If he doesn't have, McKinnon always has like a great December or a great play. Yeah. If that doesn't happen next year, I could see.
Well, McKinnon's super old too. I mean, I think they'll probably get someone else in there next year.
Eckler would be that guy. It's the perfect sort of 1-2 punch there. Kyler Murray's on my list to talk about here because he's him and Justin Fields, really. So these are the two quarterbacks where fantasy good. There's always questions about them for real football. And then both of those teams have high picks. Chicago, if we had it today, has pick 1 and pick 4. Arizona has pick 2. We've talked about the Fields situation. They asked Fields about it. He said, listen, I'm not going to worry about what they're picking. Right? Fields will probably be a starter somewhere. What do you think is the most likely scenario for Arizona in your mind? And if they have pick 2, because that's one of the 2 quarterbacks that are supposedly there. And then obviously Marvin Harrison Jr., the elite wide receiver prospect, is on the board too.
So I don't follow college, but I was told that those elite quarterbacks aren't doing so well. So like, it's not like the Andrew Luck RG3 anymore.
Well, here's that the expectations were so high for Caleb Williams, and he hasn't met like those, but he's still the consensus number 1 guy.
But that's not good. That's not good. Like Sam Bradford was the number 1 guy. I mean, here, and I've talked about this with Jeff so many times in the XM show, is that the number 1 guy of this particular class means nothing, right? Because if the class is garbage, it really doesn't mean anything. You want to be the number 1 of the last 5 years, right? Like if you're Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning,
Trevor Lawrence was talented.
Trevor Lawrence was supposed to be. He's, you can argue whether he's really that, but you want one of those guys, right? One of those just absolute can't miss. As soon as you're like Sam Bradford level or
Baker Mayfield,
right? Exactly. Like Goff has, rebounded and had a decent career, but like, you're not like ecstatic. He's not even on the team that drafted him. You're sort of like, remember Jameis Winston was number 1. You're sort of like, you just take the quarterback because you have that pick and you need a quarterback. And now you're saddled for years with this terrible quarterback that is hard to get rid of because you spent so much capital on him. And then in addition, you're going to give up Justin Fields, who he may not be great, but he certainly has something. He's shown a spark. He's shown that he's like a player, whether that's ends up being, a really good player or just a, fun player that, wins a few games with his legs. We'll find out. But if I'm the Bears, I definitely want to see what I can get for that pick. Like if people want to go crazy, unless I'm sold, right? That's what Dave Gettleman said. Everyone mocked him when he took Barkley. He said, I don't want to talk myself into the quarterback pick at that pick, at pick 2. I need to know that this is the guy. So it really depends. I don't know what they think. If they think Caleb Williams is the guy, then you take him, you move Fields, you do what you have to do. If you're not sure that he's the guy, if you're like, I see good and bad, I'm not sure, then you see what he'll fetch and trade, and hopefully get, a king's ransom and then build around Fields. And, maybe if there's a quarterback, maybe if you get, 2 first rounders, a second and a third or more or whatever, you get a quarterback with one of those picks anyway. Right. I mean, the Eagles got Jalen Hurts with the second rounder. There's so many ways to do it. It's such a strong position to be in. But I think to head in the sand, we must take the top quarterback in this draft and get rid of the guy we have. He's not bad. I think that's a mistake. Well, I don't know what they're thinking, so I have no idea what they're actually going to do.
All right. Kyler Murray, same situation here. Okay. He has the big salary number. He's already got the contract. So if they were to theoretically trade Kyler Murray, I guess if you're trading for Kyler Murray, you don't care. You're happy he's under contract, but they have pick 2. So what if QB2 is there's a guy named there's a guy named Drake May who again, he's a prospect that's rising, right? That people are now, there's something, he could be the number 1 guy. So let's just say that he is the consensus QB2, and right there with Caleb Williams, same situation. Like, are you going to move on from Kyler Murray? Are you going to take that guy and reset your quarterback clock? What do you think is?
I would if I like the quarterback, right? So if I'm like this, there's one of these guys I really really like this guy, then I would move Murray. Now, what would Murray fetch? Like
a first, like what Rodgers got.
Right.
Like a first rounder.
So who would trade for him?
I would say Washington Commanders if they're not happy with Howell. I would say Pittsburgh because they have Kenny Pickett.
Pittsburgh would be a good fit. I don't know. No one knows if Kyler Murray's good. He's a really weird quarterback. But yeah, Pittsburgh would be interesting with those weapons. And
Seattle if they're not thrilled with Geno. Indianapolis. Atlanta would be the other one.
Yeah, Atlanta actually those are interesting destinations for him. I mean, what a dynamic offense, in Atlanta. If they ever use all those skilled players, and then you have this mobile quarterback like that who can. He's better than Desmond Ridder. We know that.
Yeah.
I would move on if I liked the quarterback. If I didn't, then I do the same thing. Try to trade down, and build around. I mean, I just think like the NFL is weird because if you have Mahomes, then it doesn't really matter. Like you can win a Super Bowl even though you got rid of Tyreek Hill and your receivers suck. You can do it because he's that good and the quarterback is that important. But because can't breathe on the quarterback, you can't touch the quarterback. It's a lot easier to play quarterback in some ways. And so you can have a team with a great offensive line, a good defense, and just have a guy that gets the ball out of his hands quickly, doesn't make terrible decisions, and can game manage your way. I'm like, if it's not somebody who you really think has an excellent chance to be elite, get that left tackle, get that edge rusher, get that elite wide receiver that, is the best in the last 5 years or whatever you think. I think it's worth it.
The other one I think is Minnesota. If Kirk Cousins isn't, and by the way, Kirk Cousins is not under contract next year. If they can't work out something with him, originally the plan was, hey, we're going to get Josh Dobbs. They're already thinking about Nick Mullins over the bye week here.
I mean, this is like, there's a weird thing going on in sports and in society. Like, how like the latest news, the events, all the crazy. Remember the Maui fires? That was like years ago, right? That was like a month ago. Like, there's like one event after another. You can't even keep up with scandals and events and insane stuff happening. It's like that with sports. So like Josh Dobbs is a rocket scientist. Oh my God, how could they not? Everybody, he was available to the whole league. Anyone could have had him. You go to salvage the Jets season, the whole thing. And then like a week later, like, oh, forget about him. It's over. What is going on? Like it used to be, remember they were like Russell Wilson. He's such a weirdo. He's such a freak. How did they give him that money? They traded so much. He's such a, now they won 5 in a row. And it's like, I don't hear anyone making fun of Russell Wilson anymore. And Russell Wilson, what did he do? He didn't like, domestic violence or anything. He was just like a quirky, weird guy. He made that Mr. Unlimited video, which was pretty goofy. But I like weird, eccentric people. Why were people hating so much on Russell Wilson? Like, what did he ever do?
A lot of times these guys just get bad advice. I mean, think about, again, LeBron James has had probably the best sports career in top 10 sports careers of all time. And even he had the taking my talents to South Beach thing, which was kind of like douche chills, when he did it.
LeBron James is a douche. Like, I mean, he is like a guy who like, he was like trying to like shut Daryl Morey up about like speaking out about China. Right. Like, shut up. Like, why are you like trying to like stifle this? But, so I just think LeBron, like he's such a star. And he got elevated to a platform, to speak, but he hadn't thought it all through, really. He just started saying shit that he thought he was supposed to say, and a lot of it was stupid. And so he got, some blowback on that. And he's kind of like, but he's a great player. But I don't think like, LeBron is just so big that there's going to be haters regardless. Right. Because he's going to speak. He shouldn't be, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a LeBron hater. I like LeBron okay, but I think he's like kind of an imbecile. But Russell Wilson, they were being so mean to him. And he's not like a LeBron level star or anything, he's just like, he just like got a good contract, and that's not his fault. And good for him. And it was like character assassination. Like he was this terrible guy, but now they won 5 games in a row. It's like, no one say anything.
Yeah, winning cures all ails. That's always happens in sports locker rooms. When you're winning, there's no problems. When you're losing, the blame starts to be thrown around. Just like with players that have off the field issues, when with more talent comes more tolerance.
Oh, right? Of course, yeah. So. I mean, so many quarterbacks get away with stuff that scrubs would not have gotten away with. But I really, but to me, it's also the speed with which these things come up and go away. People memory hole everything now, like everything that people were doing, right? Like except Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, they were saying, oh, he's looking for attention because he's trying to come back from his Achilles tear. Yeah. And they're all like dumping on Rodgers. Why are you mad at Rodgers? Because he didn't take the vaccine? Well, did he die? Nothing happened. He was right. He was completely right. And yet everybody's mad at him because he didn't go along with what they were going along with. And so they're like, trying to like get at him for other things. We got hurt. People are like dunking on him getting hurt. They're like, oh, go get some ivermectin to fix your Achilles. Like, dude, he got hurt in a football game. Like, why are you mad at him when He turned out to be right. Like, people are just mad at these people, and then they memory hole even why they're mad. They just know they don't like Aaron Rodgers, so now they're like, oh, he's seeking attention. Oh, he's trying to come back from a serious injury in a record time, but he couldn't possibly just want to play football and get back on the field. He must be seeking attention by coming back so quickly. Like, it's like everything that people say and do now is just memory hole to the next thing, and it's like it's almost going too fast. I mean, how could Josh Dobbs was like, I mean, it turns out he's Jeremy Lin, but they were talking about it like this was like Tony Romo coming in, or Dak Prescott, or one of these late round picks that finally got a chance. And it's ridiculous.
Well, you know who Jeremy Lin is? It's Tommy DeVito, right? Because Jeremy Lin slept on his sister's couch or his brother's couch in New York.
DeVito's not even as good as Lin. Lin was actually good for like 2 weeks,
Oh my God. That was not good. Like Hall of Fame. Like if that career it was Hall of Fame. Did you see that Tommy DeVito, the New York Giants backup quarterback, was offered, they did like a little history, was offered more money, significantly more, by Washington, and he turned it down because, first of all, free rent, living at home with your mom, and all that other, I respect that. Do you think Tommy DeVito is at least played his way into being the backup quarterback for the Giants next year?
She takes a lot of sacks. I mean, Daniel Jones took a lot of sacks, and even Taylor got sacked a bunch, not as much as the other two. Yeah. But he gets sacked a ton, and some of it's the line, but some of it's him.
That's experience, though. He'll get that better now. I mean, he's the upside, though. Have you seen enough there to?
I mean, he's certainly like, it's not like you and me. Like sometimes you see like Tim Boyle or Zach Wilson. It's like you and me. You got called into the game, and you're like, okay, let's go, let's do it, guys. All right, Garrett, run a out, and I'll throw it to you. It looks like it's that bad. Whereas Tommy DeVito definitely passed the professional eye test. Right. Not the first game, but he's like an NFL quarterback. Like, it's not a joke. It's not like a joke. So, that's something, right? That's probably a backup job somewhere. Like, I don't think,
or at least a practice squad at minimum.
Something, and then if the backup gets hurt or the starter gets hurt, the backup's elevated, then he's the backup. Right. He's obviously a pro quarterback.
He's a poor man's Mike White. I understand.
He's like a Mike White. Yeah.
So you were talking about, just quickly, the short memory. I think it also has to do with social media, meaning like that news. We used to have to wait when we were growing up for the 6 o'clock news and see what the stories of the day were, or news at 11. Used to hear that phrase in primetime programming. Now it's like a notification on my phone. Here's the new thing. So just with access to all news through social media, I think that's what our lack of attention span probably has to do with.
But it really used to be like a story would get covered in some depth, right? It'd be like a couple weeks into like why, this person lied under oath and, what it means. And there'd be like an in-depth thing for like 2 weeks, right? Like there'd be a story would last like a few weeks, the news cycle. And now like huge stories last like, not even a day until there's another one. It might be because of that there's so much coming in. I also think that we're in a period, I don't know if you ever heard of the book, The Fourth Turning. We're in a period of crisis and dissolution of the existing order.
I've heard you talk about it.
Things are falling apart at a rate that's much faster than a usual time period. They say it basically started during the financial crisis and is going through COVID. And so you have like, I live in Portugal. The prime minister of Portugal just resigned for some scandal a couple of weeks ago. Like, there's like people just resigning, and like every second there's a new drama about somebody else, something being uncovered, and so, social media is definitely feeding that, but I also think there's just more things falling apart.
Yeah. So I'm glad that we've continued to do this sports podcast because, you do your Chris Liss podcasts, and, that's on social issues. And everyone should go over to realmansports.com. Chris Liss has everything linked over there. He has his Chris Liss podcast available, Spotify, Apple Podcast, social issues, politics, all that stuff. But, listening to you and Jeff on the radio, now Jeff and Nick on Sirius XM, was like a 4 to 5 day part of my week. And, you should be doing sports. And I know you would skip a week here and there now if you didn't have someone holding you accountable. I'm like your gym trainer holding you accountable. So
yeah, I like talking sports. I like doing this, and it's fun, and you're a good interviewer. You ask good questions, and I enjoy it. It's just that, it's not even politics. I hate politics. I don't care about the horse. I'll talk about some, like, trying to get Biden's corpse over the line is an interesting political discussion. But the point is that I don't really care about the horse race. I'm not like, I don't care about the parties. I'm not invested in either party. But like the things that are going on now, that are like immediately, like people forget, like they weren't allowed to leave their house during COVID. Like you weren't, like, literally you were locked in your house. It's called lockdown. What the hell is that? What, you live in a Western society. You don't live in like North Korea. Like you were locked down. And people are like, memory hole that, like, oh no, it was just for the public good. And then it turned out, no, it didn't make it actually made things worse. And there's no accountability for that. They violate your rights. And it turns out, well, we were scared at the time, right? Oh, we were scared at the time. That's going to be the reasoning. Being scared can justify violating people's rights. Well, then, all bets are off in that case then, because then we can run roughshod over everybody. Oh, terrorism. We better spy on you illegally. Well, they did that. Snowden revealed that. So these are the things that are on my mind as a person who, I have a kid. I live in a Western country. I mean, Europe is probably as bad or worse than the US, probably worse. And I'm, want to just preserve, things like the ability to say what I want to say. They're trying to censor people. I mean, this is well documented now that Stanford University, these elite institutions, were trying to actually censor the internet with things that actually turned out to be true. But even if they weren't true, even if some of the stuff wasn't true, it's like, well, that's the thing. In free speech, you can be wrong, and then it can be corrected by the marketplace of ideas. And this is how we actually have progress. When you can't correct, you're screwed. You're effed. Your society's in dark ages where you can't question the priest. You can't question the church. You can't say a bad word. You're going to go to hell. You're going to get excommunicated. You're going to get burned at the stake. This is the kind of thing that we know from history is the worst thing you could possibly do. And here we are, Stanford, Harvard, the elite institutions working with the government to violate the First Amendment and censor. So this is the stuff that I think really impacts me personally. And I'm still into sports, right? I'm super into the fantasy basketball league I'm in with Sasha. I'm in second place now. We've slipped a bit, but I'm like researching every week to do pickups and stuff. I'm into this shit. I like it, right? But, the stuff that's bigger that impacts my life, my kid's life, that's the stuff that's on my mind.
It doesn't have to be a choice. It could be both. I mean, a couple podcasts a week is not going to kill you, especially if you enjoy it. Now, listen, if you didn't enjoy talking about sports and all that that comes with it, or if you're just doing a solo pod talking into a mic, at least here when we're doing it together, you're getting a video component from it. We're figuring it out. Each year.
No, it's a win-win for me, for totally. But I do need like the personal trainers to come on, do the sports thing, because sometimes I'll see something like the Rodgers thing or the Charissa Thompson thing a couple of weeks ago, Carissa Thompson, where she's like, where she was like, this is fake, the stupid code. We talked about that, right?
Well, and just to anyone that living under a rock, Carissa Thompson, the sideline reporter, couldn't get access to a coach, so she made up the generic sound bites. Oh, the coach said we need to do better on third
tackle
down.
Better, take care of the ball, whatever, right? And so there was all this phony outrage from the usual suspects, pro clutching. Oh my God, that's so bad for journalism. And like, no, she knew she had a bullshit job. And she was like, coach doesn't want to talk to me. He needs this, these minutes between halves for his team.
Love that Amazon stood by her without even blinking. They're like, no, she's good at her job. We don't care. Keep going.
And it was like 20 years ago. Who cares? Yeah. And the whole thing is like, it's a bullshit job. Nobody cares. Nobody's look, if it were important what she was doing, a coach, and if it was done over the years, one of them say, hey, I never said that. Why is she saying that? Like someone say, hey, did you tell, right? She would easily have gotten busted if she said something inappropriate, or the fans would be like, wow, we didn't get the usual in-depth coach speak that we're used to. It was like nobody was the wiser because it didn't matter. And I understand the principle of it, but if you're doing a real journalistic job, have integrity. Get on the Mina Kimes getting so upset about Aaron Rodgers not complying with the NFL's mandates and getting all histrionic on the air, almost to the point of tears, it looked like, and then not apologizing for that, rather than, this totally inconsequential thing. But my point is something like that, I will, get exercised about and post something. But just like, who are you going to pick up on your waiver wire or a good strategy for the playoffs? Like, I don't really think about that during my week. It's not the kind of thing where I get up in the morning and I'm like, shit, I got to say something about this. This is really bugging me, and that's the whole point of the podcast. Like, this is something that's on my mind. It's important. I want to communicate, or here's a new idea I had. This to me is very interesting. I have a new idea. Actually, I'm going to do on the podcast later today. I come up with something. I just think about something new that like is interesting to me. It might not be anything that's like so dystopian or, you're going to get your rights taken. It's not only about that. Just some idea. It could be a math thing. It could be just an idea, philosophical idea. That's what like wakes me up in the morning and like keeps me up at night. The sports stuff, I love it. If I have a Circus Survivor thing and I'm down to 20 people or whatever again, like that will occupy my attention for sure. But I'm not like living and dying with that every day.
Yeah, but also, I mean, listen, I'm going to give you a nice compliment now, which you already know, but you're a talented broadcaster when it comes to sports. And I think that, just selfishly, I'm keeping you accountable to doing a sports podcast because I want to hear it. You
can keep doing it. No, I like doing it. And it's good for me. It's good to like, you have very specific knowledge over a lot of years doing something. And, you don't want to just flush that down the toilet. You want to be like, okay, I have very specific knowledge of this thing. And I'm still doing the other thing I really like, which I realized the other day, is I'm doing fantasy basketball now. And I'm going to do baseball starting tomorrow. I'm going to do one team a day for December.
When you say one team a day, what does that mean?
Go to the RotoWire depth charts, go in alphabetical order, was the Diamondbacks or whatever, and go through every prospect, every position, everything, and just
you're going to learn it.
I'm going to learn it.
Right.
Put them in a spreadsheet at their positions, look at how many games they played, just read up, learn it. I'm not going to look at any ADP for my first Beat Chris Liss baseball draft. I don't even want to know. I just want to get my own cheat sheet, go in there cold, and just literally pick the best guy that I think that I want to take each round. And people are like, you take this guy in the 5th, this guy goes in the 11th. I don't care. Don't give a shit. I'm just going to do it the first time. And then obviously I'm going to see how drafts go. So I'm going to learn some ADP just by osmosis. But I want to just not have it. I don't want to be,
clouded,
influenced by it. But anyway, so I'm going to do that. That's my plan. I'm doing basketball. I'm into it with Sasha. She's into it. I love testing myself against sports. Testing, I fucked it up because I was listening to these midwit spreadsheet guys and I got caught up in. I love being like, okay, well, let's test this. Let's see if I do my own thing, how well I can actually do. Okay, where did I go wrong? Where did I lean on fantasy pros? Where did I lean on some heuristic, who had the best matchup this week instead of what I knew was true, and keep refining it. And sports is the best way to test that, because it's like fantasy sports is it's the greatest lab that we have. We can actually experiment with all these different heuristics and learning and applying what's going on in real life things in sports. It's that I will always enjoy. It's just there's so much there.
Yep. All right. Well, like I said, as a fan of what you do, I will keep pushing you. Not hockey and Chinik, as my grandmother used to say, but I will definitely keep pushing to do football, and then you'll figure it out as you go along.
Got to get you doing baseball, Alan. That's the key.
I know. Just like how you've resisted doing a seasonal football league. I mean, you know what it is about baseball? I don't love the sport. You know what I'm saying? And you have to love it.
It's a sissy sport. All these guys getting injured. No one even, it's like the only way you should ever get injured in baseball is pitcher arm, and collision with the wall or another player's head. Those are the only two times you should be. You slide into a base, you break your hand, you're out 8 weeks. I mean, this is just, hit by a pitch in the face. I'll give credit to that too. Hit by a pitch in the face. Otherwise, it's a sissy sport. These guys straining their hamstring in the outfield. It's pathetic running the bases.
Yeah. Yeah. I shouldn't say I don't love baseball, because I do a lot of baseball content for Roto, but I'm not giving the content. I'm facilitating the content. I have Jeff on, I have James on, I have Clay, all our great RotoWire guys. And I prompt them. I ask them questions. Cause it doesn't matter what we're talking about. My passion is I love talking to people. That's why the RotoWire podcast I do in the offseason of football is just bringing on people from all over the industry, people that just sometimes big, small, doesn't matter, and just love talking to them, because I love finding out about people and talking about content creation, all that kind of stuff. So let's summarize here just our football stuff, and then we'll just close it out with some other thoughts that you might have. If you're talking about 3 things right now, they might seem obvious to you. Just give me 3 tips that people should keep in mind as we get to the end of the season here and you get into your fantasy playoffs. A couple do's or don'ts that are that you think that is important to know.
Ditch the upside wide receivers, stash running backs that are the clear backups on decent teams.
Elijah Mitchell, Dearness Johnson,
Rico Dowdle, those kind of guys, that are just, if the guy gets hurt, you may have the guy that wins the leagues, right? That's it. I mean, and then I would say look at schedule of the playoffs for especially quarterback, kicker, defense. Those are the 3 sort of, you're not going to sit a top running back, but don't overdo the schedule thing. Don't sit Josh Allen just because Russell Wilson has a great matchup and Allen has a bad one. That's too far. It's a tie break. It's not and that's really it. I mean, I think those are the 3. I mean, it's fantasy football. It's the same as regular season. You realize your horizon is shorter, and there's those 3 weeks.
Go ahead. The last piece I would add is that even if you don't need a backup quarterback that has a good matchup, I would pick them up so your opponent can't, just in case something happens with their thing too. You could play defense on the waiver wire as well.
So, what you should do is those things that freeze them. You just pick up and drop every kicker when the guy's kicker gets hurt, and then he's got no kicker.
Well, a lot of the softwares have done away with that. So if you pick up and drop in a certain amount of period, they still stay a free agent.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, because that was a problem. So the default setting now is, you can.
That's what I'm saying. It's a slippery slope from picking up a quarterback you don't want to play defense to picking up all the kickers and dropping them. And
you just remind me of something here, just talking about ethics of fantasy football. In the NFFC, people that, are in sixth place have no shot. They stop setting their lineup. What's a fix for that? Because like right now, I need a guy who hasn't said he still has Cam Akers in his damn lineup to win a matchup for me to get in possibly into the NFFC playoffs. How do you prevent that, if at all?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's their team. I think you could, but even if you try to best, I mean, it would still be applied to anyone. Let's say you best balled an injured player. Like, so if a guy started a guy who's injured for more than a couple of weeks that was like out for the year.
But best ball's not fair either, because you would never start Donovan Peoples-Jones. But if he gets 3 catches for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Right. Yeah. Right. And only because they got an injured guy, you're like, wait a second, I needed him to lose. And not only did he, but you could make it that like, not best ball, but he's just the next guy in the cheat sheet or the next guy on the
This is what Tom and Greg need to develop for NFFC is that someone who's like basically given up, who, as you like to say, tipped the king on their season, can click a button and it will auto start by projections.
Yeah, that would be perfect, right?
And
if you don't make a move, it's just like auto draft. If you don't show up in a minute, auto draft takes over, and you got to actually manually shut it off. So if you leave an injured guy in your lineup, auto draft kicks in, kicks him out, and then the next week you could turn it off. But you say before the season in the rules, if you leave an injured guy in your lineup at game kickoff, the second it kicks off, it's going to swap him out, right? And then it's going to, for the top projected guy on your bench, and then it's going to, now the problem is if you don't make the fab moves, you may not have, like this week,
It's fine. If you don't have it, you don't have it. But I'm talking about like, there's a league where someone has Cam Akers in their starting lineup and they have, I know Gus Edwards
Scrubs,
is on, they have Dearness Johnson on their bench.
Right. Yeah. But it's very slippery slope because it's like, well, but what about if the team that didn't make any fab moves and they don't have guys on their bench, I mean, there should be like, you could have a warning. I mean, Tom and Greg are not going to do this. But you could say, look, if you don't,
they need that. They
can't invited back.
No, they can't do that. The fantasy football, the gaming providers, it's so competitive now. And Greg and Tom, listen,
you could get a competitive advantage for running a ship that it's like, no, we don't if you quit, it's fine, but you're not going to be invited back. Although someone could do it under a fake handle anyway. I mean, you can't.
It's not there. You have to worry about basic integrity of the league, or just say, hey, that's part of the game. When people quit, just worry about your team. That's why they have all the points things rather than record. Like if you just worry about your points,
if you're trying to get in by record, you're a nutless monkey anyway. It's like you're basically like your team's not that good.
I'm 4-8 in one league, and I have like the third most points. So I'm not even worried about wins and losses right now. I'm worried about just like setting that dominant lineup each week.
No, but it does matter because the first place guy in points and record kind of gets rid of the record guy, right? But the problem is if the
4-8 guy though with the points gets in if he's the second most points.
Well, let's say that the other guy has a better record than the 4-8 guy.
Then both get in.
All three get in.
Yes, in the NFFC rules.
Okay. So there's no way for that guy's low points, good record to hurt you if you have the second most points.
Right. If I have more points than the second best record guy, he gets in. So let's just say
the best record guy has the fourth most points. The second best record guy has the most points.
Right.
The third most points has a losing record.
That's me. I get in. That's the exception that Tom and Greg made for a third team to get in.
All right. So then it's not a big deal if the other team does well. Yeah.
All right. Anything else society related before we close out here?
I'm going to talk about this. So I don't know if you saw the Elon Musk interview with New York Times, and Andrew Ross Sorkin asked him like, well, what about these advertisers? Some of the stuff you said has made them uncomfortable. And he's basically
just to give people background, Liss, is that advertisers are leaving Twitter in not in droves, but there's big time advertisers that are not staying with Twitter. We don't have to get into the nuances why.
Well, it was shown that, I mean, the court is going to look at it because they're suing, that Media Matters basically jerry-rigged this sort of fake impression that there was like all this stuff going on, next to their ads, like neo-Nazi content next to people's ads. And they were like, oh, I don't want to advertise next to that. And they pulled out, and it was kind of a jerry-rigged thing. It wasn't really true. Well, they're going to litigate that. Okay. So, but they're leaving. And, of course, like, I'm not like a huge Elon Musk stan. I don't, typically trust any of these people, but, he's been very outspoken about certain things, and basically, all these advertisers are leaving, and obviously Twitter's going to lose money without the advertisers. And Andrew Ross Sorkin, asked him about it and said, "Aren't you concerned about some of the things you've said and posted and allowed to be posted?" And he basically just looked at him and was just like, you know what? Fuck them. He's like, I'm not going to be blackmailed.
Money. True.
Yeah, that's
money.
FU money, right? But I thought there was something more interesting, right? He said something which was interesting also. He said, there's a lot of people, who want to look good, seem like the good guy while they're doing evil. I don't want to be associated with this. And just, it's all signaling. And we know this from Twitter, and the fantasy sports industry has a lot of people like that. I mean, it really came out in COVID. It was ugly. It was really nasty, petty people, but signaling a lot. But there's something even more interesting, I think, that came out of that. And they said, well, what are you going to do if they advertise? You're going to be able to run the company, without this ad money, in the current model? And he said, no, the company will go out of business then. And he said, well, and he's like, and then people will know why it went out of business. And Sorkin was like, why? Because of the things you said? He's like, no, not because of what I said, but because of these advertiser boycotts, based on, not wanting, the content, the free speech to be heard. And he's like, well, no, they're going to blame you. They're not. And he's like, we'll leave it up to the judge to see. Let the chips fall. He's like, the judge isn't going to go. And he's talking about like a court. He's like, no. I'm talking about the people are the judge. And I thought that was actually really profound. It was not as like fun as like, go fuck yourself, or these people. And the deeper point about people wanting to look good while they're doing evil and virtue signal. But it was almost a deeper point, which is sort of like, look, like information, we're in the information age and people can see what's going on. And for all the stuff that happens when people pretend to do good or want to be seen as good, I think over long haul, people can judge for themselves like what actually happened. And I think if these advertisers leave and Apple leaves, and they're sort of like, we don't want people to be able to say what they want. I think it's going to hurt those brands a lot. I don't think those brands can hide behind, oh, we want to look good. I think people are going to see them virtue signaling and they're going to see through it. And it's going to actually, it may kill Twitter because, they need the revenue, but it may also really, really harm those other brands. More and more people are not on like a political team. Like, oh, this is the good guy. A lot of people are just tired of it. They don't want people telling them what they can read, what they can say, what they can look at. And I just thought that was profound because I think that not just in Twitter, but in all areas, like people are going to not just be judged by, these associations and this sort of media spin, but also just they're going to be judged by the public on, what they were signaling and that people see through it. And I thought that was sort of a deep point.
Good. You're finally giving Elon a little bit of love here, because in the past you've been skeptical. You've even said that he could possibly be the next Antichrist.
Well, that was allegorical, but I still think that, right? Because I think that in The Godfather, I was talking about this in my podcast. Michael Corleone was like the good guy. He was the war hero. They wanted him to be a senator. He was like the straight and narrow kid from the Corleone family, right? And they didn't want him in the dirty mafia business, right? They wanted him in the clean, respectable business. And then, his father, there's a hit on his brother and the stuff starts happening. And then he turns out to be the most ruthless of all of them, right? He's the absolute ruthless Godfather who's truly his father's son. And, I think that Elon Musk, I do respect it. He at least in this Q&A or whatever, like he's standing up for free speech and he's saying a lot of things that I agree with. But let's say the tide turns a bit and people are like, F those people. Like, aren't you sick of these scolds telling you what you can say and criticizing you for stuff that's like so benign that they always have like some, aren't you sick of it? These people telling you have to wear a mask and like trying to out you for wearing a mask to your employee. It's just disgusting. These people, aren't we all sick of it? And we're like, yes, we are sick of it. And thank you to the guy who helped, let this whole censorship and there's disgusting little petty behind the scenes machinations. This got exposed. And they say, Elon, sort of like, let's make this guy king pretty much, right? And he's got Neuralink. So it's not just Twitter so addictive. And, I try to stay off of it, and you're wasting so much time like doom scrolling on Twitter. But now you've got the thing, you pipe it right into your brain. Now he's got, the Tesla is the best AI, but it's also tracking the driver's movements. It's the most, where did you go? It's got all of your data, all of your personal stuff. If he, gets the power, he's got satellite, he could have, he's got
what's his internet satellite called again?
Starlink.
Starlink, right?
He's got Starlink, right? And obviously Twitter is just such a powerful, data engine. They've got AI, SpaceX, satellites, all over in orbit. If you are a fan of the Lord of the Rings, the lesson in the Lord of the Rings was too much centralized power cannot be borne by a single human. And Frodo, this hobbit, and the reason it's a hobbit that has to go into Mordor, the most dangerous place on earth, and destroy this ring is because the hobbit was the only creature with sufficient humility and he still got overcome by the ring in the end, right? But to like last long enough.
Wait, I didn't see it. You just spoiled the end.
Well,
I'm kidding.
It's an old book, an old movie.
I'm kidding.
But it was the only creature with sufficient inherent humility to resist long enough to get to the point where Gollum bites off his finger and it ends up destroying the ring. And at one point, it's his task and he hasn't left yet. And Gandalf, who's the wisest, noblest human that we have in the whole book, in the whole world, basically. And he says, you take it. You take the ring. I don't want this burning anymore. And Gandalf says, don't tempt me, Frodo. And he's very serious because he feels the temptation. He said, if I were to take the ring, I am sufficiently powerful that if I had this, I would want to do good. I'd want to use it for good. I want to busybody and save the world and do these things. And I would become like the Dark Lord himself. Do not tempt me. So Gandalf refused the ring because he knew in his wisdom that much power was not okay for a human to have. And this is the issue is Elon Musk is doing all the right things. He's obviously very intelligent. He's obviously saying a lot of based shit, but nobody, it's too much power. It's too much power. I don't want him to have the ring. So I still maintain that he's the risk. And by the way, if Antichrist is allegorical, I'm not like literally, but if there was somebody that were that person, you would like him a lot. You would like him and you would be for him. Because if it were like Klaus Schwab, eats the bugs and own nothing, that's not the Antichrist. You're not going to go along with that dude. Bill Gates, he's a repulsive person, with the man boobs and he's just a repulsive, like telling you how to
the last Antichrist, I don't think was Hitler, right? I mean, that was
I don't think he was technically the Antichrist. He was a very evil person, but I don't,
Nostradamus identifies him as the second Antichrist.
Does he? Well, I mean, it's funny because a lot of the right wingers were saying Obama was the Antichrist, and then there was a fact check that said he wasn't. It was like, you can't fact check whether someone's the Antichrist. It's not a factual type of thing like that. Right. But the thing is, okay, maybe, but what I'm saying is like, it would be somebody charismatic, somebody that you like. It wouldn't be somebody who you're like immediately like, why is this guy's money being allowed to influence health policy? And this guy just go away. You're the biggest scumbag of all time. Why are you on Epstein's plane? It would be somebody that you like. So that I'm saying the fact that I like him is not a reason to say that he couldn't be capable of great harm. Two quick
things. Like, do you remember the movie Oh God, You Devil with George Burns?
I don't remember it.
So basically, he was the devil, but it's likable George Burns with his cigar, and he would talk. He was friendly, but then he was this evil devil type. And then the other thing, just going back to your Godfather reference too, what's also funny is that the mafia. You found out that the politicians were a mafia as well. I mean, that's really when you got into the deep part of it. So,
and that's even more true today.
Yeah,
I mean, the whole thing's a mafia right now.
Yeah, when people complain about paying their their taxes and stuff like that, like no one likes paying their taxes. I'm like, you don't understand. You're paying the mafia.
Protection money, so you don't get in trouble. Nobody's like, I mean, maybe there's a couple people left like, oh, I'm a good citizen. I want to give them I want to make sure everyone, I'm paying my fair share. It's like, no. You within the law, so they don't come and break your legs. Right. You pay, but you have to,
Right. And the other thing is like people, I'm paying this money. How come I don't see the potholes in my roads fixed? They do that once in a while to keep you quiet, but like you said, you're paying for them not to quote break your legs, throw you in jail, harass you. But
you're paying for like wars overseas that you have zero interest in, getting people killed to enrich arms manufacturers and pharmaceutical companies. I mean, this is what you're paying for. Like, I'd rather they just lit it on fire and just said, you know what? Just to be an obedient citizen, we light some of your money on fire every year. I'd be like, that's better than what you're spending it on. Seriously.
Last question, and you could be brief with this if you want, because it's just a speculation question. God forbid this country ever got into a hot war with a major country like an Iran. Do you ever think that there would be like a Vietnam style draft again?
I don't know. I don't know who would go along with. I mean, I don't know who would. The problem is after COVID and even the Iraq War, which was such a catastrophe. I mean, I just don't. I can't believe people still fell for the Ukraine stuff. Like, oh, we must support this whatever amount of money. I can't believe people still fall for it. But I think there's just such a large amount of people now that are just like, no, like I'm not into this. Like, whatever war you're starting is not in our interest ever. It'd be one thing if they invaded America. I don't mean like a terrorist attack. I mean, if there was like a force of like 1 million people coming to attack us or something, that'd be different. But I think we'd almost have to get to there before the public would be like, oh, I'll send my kids against their will. Yeah, this is for the greater good. Who's going to buy that these days? Who's credulous anymore? These Congress people are insider trading. Both parties, they're insider trading. I mean, this is like, it's like a loot and grab. When there's like a blackout and they throw, a rock through a window and loot everything, a riot. That's what the Congress is. They're just looting the Treasury. We're in 34 trillion in debt. They don't.
Crazy.
It is like there is no. So I think like anything like that. They got to keep you very afraid to make you obedient, but I don't think they're going to be able to persuade. I mean, they'd have to do what they did in Ukraine, which was like at gunpoint, like conscript these poor guys and throw them onto the front lines. And I don't think they would. I don't think it will get there in the U.S.
Yeah. All right. We'll end it there on that bright note. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
You follow him. Go over to Noster. He's on Chris Liss, or just go to realmansports.com. That's where you can find all of Chris Liss's content over there. Chris Liss podcast on all the major podcast providers. If you want to get behind RotoWire's paywall, see all our premium content, rotowire.com/pod, rotowire.com/pod. You put in your email and the paywall unlocks rest of season fantasy football stuff for the playoffs, fantasy baseball ranking. I think they already have them up. It's crazy. The first round of projections.
I don't want to look. I got to do my own, but they're good. If you're look for basketball, all I did was look because I wasn't going to do the research. But yeah,
basketball's up there. Golf. We even have bowling now. I mean, who the hell's doing bowling?
I'll dominate you in bowling, dude. Bowling league. I'm not a very good bowler.
Yeah, I meant like fantasy bowling. Like,
of course, that's what I mean.
Okay, yeah, I know nothing about it. And by the way, I'm terrible bowler too. If I don't get a gutter ball, I'm like pumped.
You're like that bad. I'm like probably bowled like a 120. Like so I'm pretty bad, but I'm not like horrifically.
Yeah,
bad.
Like I sometimes don't even put my fingers in the holes. I just like throw it down. Like
Okay, let's keep your personal life out of this.
There you go. I'd use that bowling grip in other areres of my life. 2 in the pink. How does it go? 1 in the stink.
You're okay. You're gonna get in trouble for this podcast. So
you think? I don't think anyone's listening from those guys. Yeah, by the way, the video views, if we're going to talk about vanity metrics for a second, they're still doing well. I was surprised because a lot of videos in fantasy football, they start downtrending. This one goes. I mean, I believe that your subscribers are buoying the value when you tweet it out or when you send it out through email. They love hearing you talk about sports. That's what I was talking about earlier. So
you may be overestimating the number of subscribers I have, but I hope that's true. Yeah,
but they're sharing it. I can see what's going on with the analytics and stuff. And again, we're not going to be slaves to the vanity metrics, but it is a nice thing to see. When people.
Sure, of course it is.
Yep. All right, Chris Liss. I'm at Alan Seslowsky on all social media. You follow him, Chris Liss, and we'll see you next week. Maybe we can never tell. Chris Liss is a week-to-week proposition. You have to tune in and find out.
No, I'll do it the rest of the year. I don't care about Survivor. I'm dead in Survivor. I won't talk Survivor anymore because I'm not going to do something like that where I have no skin in the game. But I'll talk football with you, and as long as we get some of this other stuff in.
Oh yeah, of course. You know me. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
This is one of the most pleasurable hours of the week for me. The most pleasurable 5 minutes is not with you though. You know what I'm saying? I'm still I'm under 5 minutes. I can't believe it, man. I thought I would have a little bit more stamina as I got older, but still, man, I'm so excited to be there that it's over very quickly.
Well,
how about you? Can you do 20 minutes?
At least an hour and a half.
Painful. Poor Heather. All right, man. I'll talk to you later. Have a good one, everybody. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.